Your ex tried to break you, but now the universe is delivering justice. Your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes. Carljung. Sometimes, the most painful betrayals carry the deepest spiritual lessons. If you've ever felt like your ex tried to break you, know this: the universe is not blind. It watches, it balances, and eventually, it delivers justice. In today's video, we dive into Carl Jung's chilling insight on how karmic retribution unfolds not just as punishment, but as awakening. As you watch, ask yourself, have you ever witnessed divine justice unfold in your own life? Share your story in the comments below. Your healing could be someone else's revelation. Let's grow together here on Spiritual Wisdom. 1. The breakup was a spiritual betrayal, not just emotional. They didn't just leave you, they dismissed the sacred. Your ex didn't walk away from a simple relationship. They walked away from a soul contract, and they did it thinking it had no spiritual weight, no karmic consequence. But when someone tries to break a person whose spirit was sent to awaken others, they don't just walk into silence, they walk into a mirror. The kind of mirror that reflects every choice, every deception, and every bit of disrespect back to them. Because what they touched wasn't ordinary, it was divine. They mishandled a rare energy, and the universe has a long memory. Carl Jung once said, "You meet your destiny on the road you take to avoid it." Your ex thought they were avoiding accountability. They thought abandoning you gave them control. But in truth, they collided with their own fate the moment they underestimated your value. They didn't realize that spiritual intelligence speaks quietly but strikes loudly in timing. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was energetic. It wasn't just a breakup, it was a spiritual violation. They mocked your intuition. They overlooked your empathy. They treated your soul like it was replaceable. And now, everything they thought they escaped is finding them again, not as punishment, but as a sacred rebalancing. You weren't just a chapter in their life. You were a turning point they weren't ready for, a sacred mirror they couldn't face. And because they refused to grow, the universe is now using their own patterns to wake them up. That's what happens when someone walks away from someone chosen, from someone who loved with purity, from someone who carried light and gave grace. They weren't rejecting you, they were rejecting transformation. And now, the energy they left behind is reshaping their life, their relationships, and their peace. That's the intelligence of spiritual wisdom. It doesn't need revenge. It only requires alignment. While they wrestle with confusion, you are rising in clarity. While they cycle through chaos, you are rooted in peace. Because what was meant to destroy you has become your divine refinement. Their betrayal was the fire. Your healing was the gold. And every tear you cried became an offering that heaven received. The pain didn't break you, it revealed you. It wasn't abandonment, it was divine redirection. And now, the universe is answering on your behalf, not through drama, but through elevation. They tried to walk away like it was over. But the truth is, your energy was never something they could simply leave behind. They took your light for granted, but now they're learning light doesn't chase. Light expands. And the brighter you shine, the more their shadows grow. That's the consequence of trying to destroy a soul that was sent to teach. You were the lesson. You were the grace. You were the divine appointment they weren't ready to honor. And now, the karma they denied is knocking at their door. Not because you wished it, but because universal order never forgets. If you feel the breakup wasn't just emotional, but a deep spiritual betrayal, comment below, I choose justice to affirm your healing and power. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a moment of this journey with spiritual wisdom. 2. Universal justice is now unfolding. The universe has a memory sharper than any human mind, and it never forgets how chosen ones are treated. When someone gossips about you behind your back, when they betray you with a smile, when they launch a spiritual attack cloaked in fake love, they think they've gotten away with it. But energy doesn't lie, and karma doesn't sleep. It watches. It waits. It calibrates with a precision that no justice system on earth could ever match. Those who tried to break you weren't just attacking a person. They were interfering with a spiritual assignment. And now, the universe is moving in ways they can't see, but will surely feel. You were never just an ordinary soul. You were carrying light in places that terrified them. And instead of honoring that light, they tried to extinguish it. But as Carl once said, the brighter the light, the darker the shadow. Their shadows are now being forced to face the very fire they ignited. Their life may look fine on the surface, but underneath, things are falling apart. Sudden anxiety, loss, confusion, blockages. Those aren't coincidences, they're consequences. Spiritual justice rarely arrives loudly. It's silent, it's poetic. It returns to the sender everything they projected onto you multiplied. And that's not vengeance, it's divine rebalancing. You didn't have to curse them. You just had to heal. You didn't have to fight them. You just had to walk away. That decision to detach was the most powerful act of spiritual authority you've ever claimed. Because when you stop reacting, you shift timelines. You move from victimhood into divine neutrality, and in that space, the universe moves on your behalf. What was once hidden is now being exposed, not to shame them, but to awaken them. The pain they sent out was a mirror, and now they're forced to look into it. Spiritual awakening often begins in betrayal. It cracks open the ego, destroys illusions, and forces you to remember who you are without their validation. That's why it hurt so deeply. It wasn't just about them leaving. It was about you being forced to return to your own soul. And now that you've risen, the energy has reversed. You are no longer carrying the burden of their projections. Your aura is clear. Your spirit is strong. Your silence is loud. And the more you rise in truth, the more their lies collapse. This is the hidden order of things, the divine choreography of karma, the precise unfolding of spiritual wisdom. As Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. But now, they are waking up not through insight, but through impact. And you are no longer waiting for closure. You are the closure. You are the evidence that the universe doesn't play favorites, but it does protect the sacred. 3. You were their blessing and their protection. You were not just a chapter in their life. You were the divine force holding their story together. Your presence was their calm in the storm, their unseen shield, their spiritual blessing disguised as a person. When you walked into their life, things aligned, doors opened, confusion cleared, opportunities found them, peace followed them. but they never gave credit to the energy you carried. They thought it was luck. They thought it was them. But it was your spiritual development, your inner alignment, your sacred light that brought order to their chaos. They mishandled a soul that was sent as protection, and in doing so, they rewrote their own fate. When they let you go, or broke you, betrayed you, discarded you, they didn't just lose someone who loved them. They lost the spiritual current that had been quietly keeping their world balanced. Now, what surrounds them is not just bad luck or unfortunate timing. It's the spiritual backlash of dishonoring a connection that was pure, intentional, and heaven-sent. They tried to break what was never meant to be broken. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And now, their unconscious choices are echoing back in the form of confusion, regret, and emotional chaos. They can't explain why nothing feels right anymore, why peace is foreign, why do their days feel heavier. But you were the calm, and now they are the storm. They are being haunted not by you, but by their own actions towards someone who is sent as a spiritual gift. And the silence you left behind? It speaks louder than anything you could say. You are no longer the protector of their peace. You are the evidence of what divine favor looked like when it lived in human form. The more you grow, the more they decline. That's not karma. That's energetic rebalancing. Because in spirituality, everything is cause and effect, and energy never lies. They are now forced to sit in the exact space they pushed you into. And while they search for replacements, they'll come to realize what they lost was never ordinary. What they mishandled was rare. Your spiritual growth has elevated you out of their reach. You didn't lose them. They lost themselves when they lost you. And now, as the universe continues to restore what's yours, remember this: your light was never meant to be dimmed to make others comfortable. You were their blessing, their protection, their divine mirror. And now, in your absence, they're finally meeting themselves. Comment below, "I was their blessing," if you now realize your presence was their protection. Let the universe know you've reclaimed your power. 4. They're haunted by your energy. They are haunted by your energy in ways they cannot explain because you were never just a person to them. You were a presence, a vibration, a spiritual mirror they tried to shatter but couldn't erase. You're in the music they hear randomly on the radio, in the silence that creeps in at night, in the stillness that reminds them of everything they lost. Even in the company of someone new, your energy lingers, louder than words, deeper than touch. The replacements feel like copies of something they never truly understood, because they never fell in love with a face. They were drawn to a frequency they couldn't name. You weren't glitter, you were gold. And now that they've chosen distraction over depth, every moment tastes hollow, every connection feels shallow, and every laugh echoes with a trace of what used to be real. You didn't just walk away. You elevated, you healed, you transmuted the pain into power, but they stayed stuck in the cycle, reliving what they once took for granted. Carl Jung warned, "What you resist persists." They resisted facing the depth of your soul, and now it follows them. They tried to forget someone unforgettable. They tried to unfeel someone who was a spiritual event. You weren't merely a chapter they tried to skip over the entire book, and now they're lost without the plot. Your absence didn't create emptiness. It revealed the emptiness that was already there. That's the kind of spiritual justice no court can serve. The universe doesn't punish out of spite, it corrects what was misaligned. And when someone chooses illusion over truth, they pay not in lightning, but in longing. Spiritual wisdom doesn't shout. It whispers through the consequences. It speaks through the quiet ache they can't explain, through the restlessness they can't soothe. They'll scroll, swipe, laugh, and distract themselves, but your memory will return like a ghost that demands reverence. Because energy doesn't lie. You were the light they couldn't dim, the intelligence they couldn't recognize, the soul they mistook for something ordinary. But now they know. The silence they used to weaponize against you has turned into their loudest teacher. Every new face is a reminder that they gave up something sacred for something safe. And safe doesn't satisfy the soul. They were part of your growth, but you were their wake-up call. You were the storm and the calm, the mirror and the lesson. And even though you've let go, your energy still teaches them. That's the power of divine connection. It doesn't fade with distance. It ripens with time. And long after the apology that never came and the closure you gave yourself, they'll still be haunted by what they couldn't hold. Not because you cursed them, but because you blessed them and they weren't ready to receive it. If you feel your energy still echoes in places you no longer stand, don't hesitate to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's claim this moment of spiritual justice together. 5. Your pain was a portal to power. They didn't shatter you, they summoned you. The heartbreak wasn't the end of your story. It was the ceremony that initiated your rebirth. You didn't collapse, you cracked open. And from those cracks, your power poured out, not like a whisper, but like thunder, finally remembering its voice. What they meant to destroy became the very fire that purified your identity. They thought they left you broken, but they only left you burning with a new clarity. A spiritual awakening so raw and untamed that it frightened even you at first. You are not the aftermath of abandonment. You are the alchemy of survival. And the pain? That was the portal, not to revenge, but to remembrance. Because what they thought was just another breakup was, in truth, a sacred disruption. You weren't just heartbroken, you were soul awakened. That relationship didn't just hurt, it revealed. It exposed every place you were starving for love outside of yourself. It exposed how you were shrinking to be digestible, silencing your brilliance to be accepted, bending your boundaries just to be chosen. But no more. That silence after the storm, it wasn't emptiness. It was space. Space for a new self to emerge. A self that no longer waits to be seen. A self that no longer apologizes for being rare. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That pain made you conscious. And now, you are no longer a character in their story. You are the author of your own. You've entered a new timeline, one where your self-worth is not negotiable, where your love is not something to be exploited, but honored, where your presence is not given away casually, but offered deliberately. They didn't know that walking away from you meant losing access to divine favor. Because you weren't just a partner, you were a portal. You carried healing in your voice, transformation in your touch, prophecy in your presence. And now, without you, they are left chasing illusions, trying to recreate a vibration that only existed in your frequency. That's not ego. That's energy. You don't miss them. You miss the version of yourself that still believed love had to be earned through suffering. But now you know better. You know that peace isn't found in chaos. You know that love isn't proven through pain. You know that your soul was never designed to beg for crumbs. So you stopped reaching. You stopped hoping they'd return with remorse. Because you realized the real justice isn't watching them regret, it's watching yourself evolve. The real victory isn't revenge, it's resurrection. The more you rise, the more the universe opens doors that were previously invisible. The more you heal, the more the past loses its grip on your nervous system. And the more you remember your worth, the less you desire anything that disrupts your peace. Your aura has changed. Your standards have changed. Your energy has become a spiritual boundary. You are no longer accessible in the same way because you've become unavailable to anything that doesn't feel like truth. The heartbreak didn't kill you. It crowned you. And now, you wear that pain like armor silently, powerfully, unapologetically. 6. They were the test, not you. They weren't testing your worth. They were being tested with your presence. You weren't the one under spiritual evaluation. They were given the chance to engage with something rare, something sacred to you, and they failed to honor it. The moment they tried to control what they couldn't understand, mock what they couldn't match, and dim a light they never helped to ignite, they revealed their own spiritual immaturity. Carl once said, "Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people." But instead of confronting their own shadows, they projected them onto you. Rather than rising to meet you in depth, they clung to old cycles of manipulation, jealousy, and fear. They weren't prepared for the gravity of your spirit, for the emotional intelligence, for the calm strength that radiates from someone walking in alignment with their spiritual development. They mistook stillness for weakness, boundaries for rejection, and wisdom for pride, because they had not yet cultivated those qualities within themselves. And so, instead of growth, they chose sabotage. Instead of rising, they tried to pull you under. But the universe keeps detailed records that no one can erase. When someone is given access to a soul in the middle of transformation, someone whose energy carries healing, vision, and purity of purpose, and they respond with disrespect, deception, or emotional warfare, that encounter becomes their spiritual test, not yours. You were the opportunity, they were the lessons, and they failed. You see, the spiritual realm doesn't operate on petty revenge. It works through energetic correction. The very thing they tried to break in you becomes the thing that grows stronger. The love they mishandled becomes your magnetism. The silence they thought was defeat becomes your protection. And the absence they created becomes the space where the universe plants your next blessing. Their consequences may not be visible to you, but they are inevitable. Because spiritual intelligence always calls for balance. While you heal and ascend, they are left to face the karmic mirror, the one they refused to look into when you offered them the truth. They weren't just unready to love you. They were unready to face themselves. And you, by staying soft, by staying true, by choosing growth over bitterness, passed your own hidden test. You didn't just survive the betrayal. You transmuted it into wisdom. And that's what sets you apart. You no longer chase closure because your peace is louder. You no longer seek apologies because your soul understands that justice is spiritual. In this life, people often don't recognize the sacred until it's gone. But that's not your burden. You were never the one being measured. You were the measurement. And the universe saw everything. 7. Spiritual warfare was at play. They thought it was just a breakup. But what really happened was a spiritual ambush disguised as love. This wasn't merely emotional damage, it was a calculated infiltration of your light by darker forces using your ex as their vessel. They aligned with gossip, jealousy, and shadowed intent. Behind their smile was an energy hungry to dim what it could never possess. Carl once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." But your ex couldn't do that, so they projected their darkness onto you, trying to make you doubt your worth, your power, your divine nature. They didn't just walk away. They tried to break something sacred inside you. But what they didn't know is that you were never ordinary. You were the lesson. You were the karma. You were the mirror of their own unconscious betrayal. While they partnered with chaos, you held on to spiritual intelligence. And while they sought validation through control, you found clarity through pain. The universe saw everything they tried to hide. Every time they mocked your light, disrespected your boundaries, or fed poison into your self-esteem, it was recorded. Not for revenge, but for divine rebalancing. Because when someone wrongs a soul chosen by spirit, it's never just personal, it becomes cosmic. They mistook your kindness for weakness, your silence for ignorance, your forgiveness for foolishness. But they weren't playing with your heart. They were playing with sacred fire. And now, that fire has turned. The same flame they tried to ignite under your life is now burning under their conscience. The same silence they once dismissed is now echoing in their sleepless nights. Spiritual awakening doesn't just mean you rise, it means the truth rises with you. Their punishment is not your revenge, it's your distance, your peace, your glow that they can no longer reach. You didn't fight back with words you elevated in silence. You didn't chase closure, you became it. Your intelligence, your spiritual wisdom, your alignment with higher truth is now the evidence of your power. The universe is delivering justice not by exposing them to the world, but by unveiling you to yourself. And now, everything they tried to destroy is exactly what makes you untouchable. They triggered a transformation that was never meant for them to understand, it was meant for you to embody. Because in the end, it wasn't just about heartbreak, it was about rebirth. And your rebirth is the most powerful form of justice they'll never be able to undo. 8. The silence was never peaceful. It was guilt. They didn't ghost you because they were healed. They ghosted you because they couldn't face the mirror you unknowingly held up to their soul. Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." And that's the truth they ran from. You were never just a relationship to them. You were a confrontation with their own shadows. You didn't just love them. You exposed everything they tried to bury. Your kindness, your depth, your emotional intelligence, all of it reminded them of the parts of themselves they rejected. So they didn't leave in peace. They left in panic. And the silence they wrapped themselves in, that wasn't healing. It was avoidance, laced with guilt. It was the spiritual weight of unspoken apologies and denied accountability. The deafening noise of regret they thought they could escape by staying quiet. But silence has a memory, and now it's louder than ever. Every moment they try to move on, the weight of what they did creeps in. They pretend to be unaffected, but their conscience whispers the truth when the world gets quiet. What they thought they abandoned is still with them, not as a memory, but as a karmic echo of what they once touched but didn't value. You are not just a body with emotions. You are a spiritual event, a turning point they failed to honor. They didn't just leave you. They left the version of themselves they could have become if they had stayed, healed, and evolved. And that's a kind of loss that doesn't go away. This isn't just heartbreak. This is spiritual justice unfolding. The universe doesn't rush, but it never forgets. They dismissed you, underestimated you, maybe even humiliated you, but they had no idea they were playing with divine energy. Your energy was sacred, and sacred things don't disappear. They haunt. They echo. They rise again. What they thought was weakness in you was actually your grace. What they mocked as too emotional was your deep intelligence, the kind of spiritual wisdom that reveals itself only to the brave, and they weren't ready. But now, every silence they tried to use as distance has become a bridge back to the very thing they thought they could escape, the truth. So when you feel that silence, don't confuse it for emptiness. It's the sound of the universe recalibrating, balancing scales they tipped. They weren't strong enough to face your love, your purity, your power. And now they're learning what Carl warned us. Whatever is rejected from the self appears in the world as an event. You were that event, and now you are the consequence. Because spiritual awakening often begins when someone tries to break us, and instead of shattering, we shine. 9. Your energy was divine and unmatched. You were never ordinary. You were the original design, the sacred blueprint that could not be copied, replaced, or reduced. You walked into their life as a blessing, wrapped in divine energy they couldn't comprehend, let alone handle. You radiated something pure, powerful, and deeply spiritual, an energy forged through pain, healing, and awakening. But instead of honoring it, they mocked it, dismissed it, even tried to distort it. They tried to break what was sent to bless them. And now, that energy they disrespected is echoing back into their life, not as punishment, but as reflection. Carl Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." You were their mirror, the one who unconsciously showed them the parts of themselves they refused to face: the emotional immaturity, the fear of depth, the need for control masked as charm. Your presence triggered a spiritual confrontation within them, and they ran, not from you, but from the truth you represented. You see, you were never chaotic. They were simply not ready for peace. You were never too much. They were just too empty. While you offered love, presence, and emotional safety, they chose confusion, ego, and performance. And now, in your absence, they finally feel the spiritual weight of your presence. What they once called clingy or too intense, they now crave in silence. What they called too emotional was actually your capacity for deep connection. They didn't just lose you, they lost the energy that was elevating their soul without them even realizing it. That's what happens when you betray a sacred bond. The void doesn't just stay, it expands. And in that emptiness, they are forced to remember you. not just as someone they used to know, but as someone who awakened something in them they can never unfeel. Spirituality and spiritual development are not always gentle. Sometimes they look like your departure becomes their deepest lesson. You never needed revenge because your healing became the justice. While they remain stuck, chasing fleeting validation, you rise quietly, steadily, fully. Your glow is no longer something they can touch, only something they can miss. And that is the real reckoning, realizing too late that the person they tried to break was the person sent to help them heal. You were not a phase, you were a mirror, a message, a moment of divine opportunity. And because they chose to ignore that, the universe responded not with anger, but with balance. Your growth became their grief. Your silence became their spiritual consequence. And your peace, now, is louder than any apology they'll never say. Keep going. The rarest energies are always tested first, but they are also the ones most protected by the universe. 10. You've evolved beyond their reach. You no longer shrink yourself just to fit inside someone else's comfort zone. You've stopped begging to be seen, stopped negotiating your worth, stopped allowing your light to be dimmed in exchange for temporary affection. What once wounded you has now become your initiation into power. They thought they could break you, but they didn't realize you were made of something that doesn't fracture, it transforms. Carl said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And that's what you did. You faced your darkness, met your pain without flinching, and rose not with vengeance, but with vision. While they're still performing old patterns, you've become the truth they can't escape and the silence they can't ignore. You've spiritually and energetically leveled up. There's no turning back. The version of you that tolerated disrespect no longer exists. They are now left with the echo of what they thought was ordinary, but it was never ordinary. It was divine. You were the blessing they mishandled, the sacred mirror they shattered, the soul contract they sabotaged. And now, what remains for them is imitation, mimicry, a desperate attempt to recreate your essence with people who only reflect back their wounds. But you're no longer repeating cycles. You've exited the loop entirely. You've become calm after the chaos, the intelligence behind the distance, the spiritual wisdom that walks away not in bitterness, but in reverence for self. They can feel the shift. You don't argue anymore. You don't explain. Your absence has become your most powerful language. Your healing became your closure. You no longer live to be understood by those committed to misunderstanding you. You no longer need the noise to feel alive. You found divinity in your own presence. They mistook your love for weakness, your silence for surrender, but it was a recalibration. You are now emotionally sovereign. You protect your peace like a sacred altar. You've become someone who chooses alignment over attention, solitude over toxicity, and truth over temporary validation. They are haunted, not just by what they did, but by who you've become. Your aura no longer welcomes chaos. Your boundaries are no longer negotiable. You are no longer entertaining people who once applauded your wounds and vanished at your growth. They tried to diminish what they couldn't dominate, but now they witness you embody what they can no longer access. That is justice. You didn't get revenge, you got revelation. You didn't retaliate, you realigned. You didn't fall apart, you remembered who you were. You've evolved beyond their reach. And now, The universe echoes back your clarity with blessings, protection, and divine order. Because in the end, the one who heals becomes the one who holds the power. And the one who tried to destroy you must live with the memory of the version of you they'll never know again. And remember, what was meant to destroy you became the very fire that awakened your power. The universe doesn't forget, and neither should you. If this message spoke to something deep within you, don't keep it to yourself. Like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom to stay connected with insights that nourish your soul. And be sure to turn on the notification bell so you never miss a moment of truth, healing, and divine justice. Your story isn't over. It's just getting started. What the universe does to rare souls before sending them the right person. As Carl once said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. For rare souls, this journey often feels longer and lonelier, especially when it comes to love. But what if the universe is not withholding the right person from you, but preparing you for them? Today, on Spiritual Wisdom, we'll explore what the universe does to rare souls before aligning them with the right connection, a love that transcends the ordinary. Do you feel like you've been tested in love? Share your thoughts in the comments, because your story might resonate with someone walking the same path. 1. Solitude is preparation, not punishment. Rare souls feel unseen in love, not because they are lacking, but because they carry within them a refusal to settle for what is shallow and fleeting. And this resistance is both their challenge and their gift. The universe understands the depth of their longing and the clarity of their vision, so it does not hand them quick companionship or superficial bonds to ease their temporary loneliness. Instead, it gives them solitude, which feels at times like silence, distance, and waiting, but is in truth the highest form of preparation. This solitude is not punishment. It is refinement, a necessary filter that strips away illusions, heals the wounds of old patterns, and teaches the soul to distinguish between conditioned desires and its truest longings. In the language of spirituality, solitude is the furnace where the raw metal of the self is transformed into something enduring, something that can hold love without breaking. In the path of spiritual awakening, this stage cannot be avoided, for only through it does the soul learn the sacred difference between being alone and being lonely. During this season, the rare soul begins to see clearly that modern culture often mistakes attachment for love, validation for intimacy, and convenience for destiny. Social media floods us with images of couples and commitments, tempting us to measure our worth against timelines that were never meant for us. Yet this solitude is the universe's protection, ensuring that we do not enter partnerships that mirror our wounds instead of healing them. Carl Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Solitude is the mirror that makes the unconscious visible. It forces you to confront the shadows you once avoided, to sit with the ache of your unmet needs, and to grow strong enough to no longer seek completion outside yourself. It is a sacred silence in which you learn that being whole is not about another person filling your emptiness, but about discovering your fullness within. This refinement is not gentle. It can feel like fire. You may wonder why love seems to come easily for others while you remain waiting. But the truth is that your path requires greater patience because your love will carry greater depth. Diamonds form under pressure, pearls are born from irritation, and strong souls are forged in solitude. Without this process, many confuse temporary chemistry with lasting connection, repeating cycles of heartbreak because they never pause long enough to awaken. For the rare soul, solitude interrupts this cycle. It teaches you to recognize red flags without ignoring them, to value emotional resonance over external appearances, and to trust your intuition as the true compass. In this way, solitude becomes your teacher, guiding you toward a love that transcends mere compatibility and awakens something eternal. In modern life, this preparation can feel unbearable, but it is the very soil in which your destiny is planted. Each moment of solitude is a seed sown in silence that will bloom in divine timing. You are learning to hold conversations with your inner world, to align with your highest values, to heal generational wounds, and to establish boundaries that protect your spirit. This is the unseen work that prepares you not only to receive the right person, but also to keep them. Love without preparation is fragile, but love born out of solitude is rooted, stable, and radiant. Jung's wisdom reminds us that a relationship is not simply two people meeting. It is two souls carrying their inner worlds to each other. And for rare souls, that inner world must first be cultivated through solitude. So solitude becomes your silent ally. It whispers to you in the stillness that you are not behind, that divine timing cannot be rushed, that every moment spent in self-discovery is shaping you into the kind of partner who can love without fear and be loved without losing yourself. It is not a waiting room where nothing happens, but a sacred chamber where everything essential is unfolding. The universe, in its mysterious design, delays what you desire so that you may grow into who you were always meant to be. And when the right person arrives, they will not only meet you, but also recognize the rare soul you have become, refined by solitude, awakened by silence, and ready for a love that reflects the truth of your being. Have you ever experienced a season of solitude that felt like preparation rather than punishment? If so, share your story in the comments below so we can inspire one another. And if not, simply comment, "I will embrace solitude," to show your openness to this powerful journey. 2. The first test, radical solitude. This imposed solitude is not simply an empty stretch of time. It is a sacred initiation that forces rare souls to separate the shallow ache of loneliness from the deeper wisdom of self-connection. At first, it feels like abandonment, as if the universe has withdrawn love and left you suspended in silence. But in truth, it is teaching you to recognize your own energetic frequency and to stop shrinking yourself in order to fit into relationships that cannot hold your depth. Carl said, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you." And this test of solitude makes that statement real. It strips away the illusion that companionship alone can fill the void, showing instead that the only true remedy for emptiness is learning to inhabit your own presence with reverence and strength. When you are kept apart from lesser connections, you begin to see clearly how often you once settled for less than your worth. Solitude reveals the quiet places where you compromised your values, where you ignored your intuition, where you traded authenticity for temporary comfort. It challenges you to end this cycle by teaching you that love is not about escaping yourself, but about returning to yourself. Spiritual awakening begins here, in the silence of radical solitude, where you realize that being alone is not the same as being lonely. It is in this stillness that you tune into your unique vibration, a frequency that is rare and unrepeatable. And it is only by recognizing and protecting this vibration that you will ever be prepared to welcome the right person without losing yourself again. Carljung also reminded us, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And this privilege unfolds most powerfully in solitude. Like an instrument being tuned, your soul requires stillness to find harmony. Without this tuning, relationships become discordant, repeating old patterns of chaos and disconnection. But when you endure solitude with patience and intention, you refine your frequency so that when the right soul finally enters, the connection is not ordinary, but transcendent, resonating with the intelligent spiritual wisdom of the universe itself. Modern life resists this lesson, distracting you with constant noise, shallow attention, and temporary bonds, making solitude feel unbearable. Yet what feels unbearable is actually the birthplace of your highest strength. It is in this space that you confront your thoughts, your fears, your shadows, and your desires. You meet the parts of yourself you once ignored, and you discover what must be healed before love can truly flourish. Solitude becomes the teacher that shows you how to trust yourself, how to nurture your creativity, how to develop clarity of mind, and how to awaken your inner intelligence so you are no longer dependent on another's presence for wholeness. This is the alchemy of solitude, transforming emptiness into richness, silence into wisdom, and waiting into preparation. When you embrace it, you no longer see it as a void, but as the soil in which your spirit grows, roots deep enough to withstand the storms of love and life. The universe does not give this test to everyone, only to rare souls who carry within them a destiny that demands purity, strength, and unwavering authenticity. If you are in such a season now, know that you are not being punished, but prepared. Every moment spent in solitude is shaping you into a vessel capable of holding a love that matches your depth. You are learning to carry your own light so powerfully that when the right person arrives, they do not complete you, but join you, resonating with your frequency because you have already learned to stand fully in it. In this way, solitude ceases to be exile and becomes initiation, the first great step of the universe in guiding rare souls toward a love that transcends the ordinary and awakens the extraordinary. 3. The second test, the false twin flame. The second test the universe places before rare souls is the arrival of the false twin flame. Someone who feels almost destined, profoundly familiar, and cosmically aligned. Yet in truth, they are not the true partner, but a reflection of the unconscious. Carljung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And this encounter proves the wisdom of his words. What you meet in the false twin flame is not genuine intimacy, but the mirror of your deepest projections, your longings, wounds, and unhealed shadows cast onto another person who seems to embody all that you desire. The connection feels magnetic because it is your own energy echoing back, disguised in human form, and in this reflection, the universe is asking you to see yourself more clearly. The challenge is to recognize the difference between real love and projection, between a bond that embraces your whole being and one that only accepts fragments of you. In the journey of spirituality and spiritual development, this moment is crucial, for it demands discernment and courage. A false twin flame might awaken intense emotions and feel like destiny, but beneath the passion lies incompleteness. They cannot hold all of you, only the parts that align with your unconscious needs or their own limitations. The universe uses this test not to punish you, but to train your soul to refuse half-formed love. For rare souls are not meant to settle for connections that only see them halfway. Through this test, you are refined, much like marble in the hands of a sculptor, chipped away until your truest essence can emerge. By facing the mirror of projection, you uncover your hidden patterns, your deepest vulnerabilities, and your unseen desires. The universe sharpens your inner vision so that when the right person appears, you will not confuse projection for presence. Jung observed that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. The false twin flame may ignite sparks, but it is the true partner who brings transformation rooted in truth rather than illusion. If you find yourself in a connection that feels irresistible yet unstable, ask yourself whether this love invites wholeness or traps you in repetition. True love will never demand you to shrink, suppress, or divide yourself. It will not only mirror your light, but also embrace your shadows with compassion. The second test calls you to release the illusion of incomplete love, to resist the pull of projection, and to trust that something deeper awaits. When you refuse to settle, you show the universe that you are prepared for the one who can stand beside you in truth. The lesson is profound. Discernment is the guardian of love. The universe tests rare souls more severely because they are destined for deeper unions, and only those who pass through the fire of projection can carry the strength to receive love in its fullness. The false twin flame is not your ending, but your preparation, teaching you to separate infatuation from intimacy, shadow from substance, illusion from reality. When you endure this trial with patience, clarity, and integrity, you prove yourself ready for the true partner who will not complete you, but who will join you in a union where both souls are already whole. If you've ever faced the test of a false twin flame, share your experience in the comments so others can learn from your journey. And if you're ready to welcome the right connection, comment below. I trust the universe's timing. 4. The third test. Self-sabotage when love arrives. When love begins to enter the life of a rare soul, it does not come wrapped in ease, but often in resistance. For Carl reminded us that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. These unconscious wounds surface as walls the moment true love appears. Rare souls, shaped by betrayal and disappointment, instinctively doubt, push away, or test the very person they have long prayed for, sabotaging the blessing before it can take root. Suffering has become so familiar that joy feels dangerous, and intimacy feels like a risk too heavy to trust. What looks like discernment is often fear, cloaked as wisdom. What seems like strength is sometimes only a defense against being vulnerable. This pattern of self-sabotage is not foolishness, but a reflection of the deep battle between longing and fear. On one side is the yearning for profound, authentic love. On the other is the terror of being broken again. In today's world, this shows up in ways that feel almost ordinary. Doubting the kindness of someone who genuinely cares, ghosting someone you secretly like just to see if they chase, setting impossibly high standards not because they matter, but because you fear being truly seen. These actions create distance, all while pretending to be noble caution. Yet this is the third test the universe places before rare souls. Can you allow yourself to receive healthy love? Or will you cling to your patterns until they drive away the very thing you desire? Spiritual awakening is not only about meditation, rituals, or sacred knowledge. It is about the courage to soften when every instinct wants to harden, to lean into trust when every wound whispers retreat. Jung taught that where wisdom reigns, there is no conflict between thinking and feeling, reminding us that true wisdom is the balance, the alignment of mind and heart that welcomes love with clarity rather than suspicion. To meet love with constant testing is to keep replaying old pain, but to meet love with openness is to step into transformation. The universe uses this phase to refine rare souls, not to punish them, but to stretch them beyond their fear of intimacy. Every time you push away someone who mirrors health and kindness, you are shown how much you still cling to the safety of suffering. Every time you sabotage connection out of mistrust, you are reminded that discernment without trust becomes a prison. But the universe does not send the right person to watch you destroy love with your past. It offers this test so you can recognize fear in disguise, rise above old defenses, and finally allow yourself to be loved without sabotage. The path forward is learning to notice your patterns with honesty and tenderness. When you catch yourself doubting every word, ask if it is wisdom or fear speaking. When you are tempted to test, ask if it is the truth or doubt you are seeking. To receive love is to admit that not every story ends in pain, that joy can be trusted, and that intimacy can be safe. This is the spiritual growth that turns awakening into wholeness. Passing this test means understanding that love is not a trap, but a liberation, and that the right person is not here to harm you, but to walk with you in strength, in wisdom, and in freedom. 5. The fourth test, vibrational recalibration. The fourth test the universe gives to rare souls before sending them the right person is vibrational recalibration, a complete reorientation of energy that strips away outdated identities, roles, and environments that no longer match the frequency of the life and love you are destined for. At certain points in your journey, people you once resonated with begin to fall away. Friendships that felt safe suddenly feel suffocating, and even the stories you once told yourself about who you are start to collapse. This is not cruelty, but preparation, because Carl reminded us through his idea of individuation that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. To individuate is to shed illusions, even those that secretly inflate the ego, such as believing that being misunderstood makes you more worthy. The universe does not allow illusions to cross into a sacred union, because only authenticity can sustain love built on truth. Vibrational recalibration demands that you let go of identities that once gave comfort but now block your expansion. Think of it as a software upgrade. The old code may have worked for a while, but it cannot run the new programs your soul is ready for. Many resist because the release of roles like the victim or the misunderstood one feels like death. But in reality, it is renewal. It is the pruning of dead branches so new growth can flourish. Søren Kierkegaard once said, "Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards." And this process is exactly that. Only by surrendering the past can you step into the future your soul longs for. Jung's spiritual wisdom shows us that individuation is radical honesty, requiring you to face the stories you repeat to yourself. I am unseen. I am always the victim. I am different, therefore special. These narratives may once have protected you, but they also kept you cycling in pain. Spiritual intelligence lies in realizing that clinging to suffering does not make you valuable. True worth is born when you embody authenticity without the need for victimhood. In modern life, this looks like walking away from environments that drain you, refusing to stay in relationships that demand you betray yourself, and no longer needing to broadcast wounds for validation because you understand that healing is a private sacred act. This recalibration opens the space to attract love that resonates with your true frequency. Energy always seeks resonance, and if you continue holding on to old wounds, you will draw partners who mirror them back. But when you release outdated narratives, you magnetize someone who recognizes your wholeness instead of your brokenness. This is why the universe seems to delay love for rare souls. It is not denial, but refinement, ensuring that when love arrives, it is no longer another painful lesson, but a true meeting of equals. Through this process, you learn to stop mistaking intensity for intimacy, to stop equating chaos with depth, and to embrace the quiet constancy of love that is both deep and steady. The emptiness you feel during this stage is not punishment, but clearing, making space for alignment. The fading friendships, dissolving identities, and louder silences are all proof that the universe is preparing you. Jung warned, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Vibrational recalibration is the way fate becomes conscious choice, and choice becomes sacred love. The right person will not come to rescue an outdated version of you. They will arrive to meet the soul who had the courage to become fully authentic, and only then will you realize why this test was necessary. Leave a like and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss powerful insights like this. Type in the comments, "I am aligned with my highest vibration," to affirm your readiness for true love and spiritual growth. 6. The final test. Surrender the need for love. The universe's final test is not punishment, but transformation. And it asks you to stop chasing love as if it were something missing, and instead to embody it as who you are. For rare souls who have walked the difficult road of self-discovery and spiritual awakening, this step is about becoming whole without external validation. Carljung reminds us, your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens. In this awakening, you realize that love is not something to be found, but something to be lived. And when you begin to live as love itself, you no longer seek a partner to complete you. You radiate a presence that calls forth what truly matches your soul. This is not indifference or apathy. It is alignment. To detach from the hunger for love is not to shut yourself off, but to rise above the old patterns that once chained you. Spiritual development means standing in the fullness of your being, already whole, already loved, already chosen by the very source of life. The frequency you carry becomes your prayer, and the universe responds by bringing a mirror, not to your wounds, but to your strength. This is vibrational congruence, the profound truth that once you no longer need love, the right love arrives. It is not a love born of lack or fear, but of recognition, a connection between two souls who walk side by side, whole to whole, reflecting one another's growth and depth. As you reach this place, something powerful begins to unfold. The people who once drained your energy quietly fall away, and the karmic bonds that once entangled you dissolve. In their place appears someone who does not come to fix your brokenness, but to honor your completeness. Someone who resonates with the love you already carry. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And who you truly are is not a seeker waiting to be found, but the living embodiment of love itself. To surrender the need for love is to embrace the highest state of spirituality, where your very being is love, where your wholeness is no longer negotiable. The lesson the universe weaves through this final test is simple yet profound. Release the timeline, release the attachment, release the idea that love exists outside of you. Love was never withheld. It was always being cultivated within you, so that when it finally arrives in human form, it is not a savior you meet, but an equal. The test is not to prove yourself worthy of love, but to remember that you were never incomplete. By surrendering the need for love, you step into the truth that you are in love. And from that truth, the universe sends you someone who doesn't fill your emptiness, but amplifies your fullness. This is the sacred paradox reserved for rare souls. Only by letting go of the need do you finally receive the love that was always meant for you. 7. The arrival of soul-level partnership. Once all the tests of solitude, longing, and inner refinement are passed, true partnership arrives not with chaos, but with calm recognition, like two long-lost travelers meeting on the same path. Carl once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." And this is exactly what happens when the universe finally sends the right person to a rare soul. This love is not an obsession, nor is it about sacrificing your identity for the sake of union. Instead, it is peace wrapped in presence, freedom built on trust, and authenticity born from maturity. It is the kind of connection where both individuals can stand tall as whole beings, yet grow even more expansive together, celebrating each other's essence without fear of losing themselves. This partnership is marked not by drama, but by serenity. In a society that often mistakes turbulence for passion, rare souls discover that the deepest intensity comes through calm steadiness, through the quiet power of being seen, known, and accepted without conditions. Spirituality teaches us that when two awakened beings meet, there is no need for control, manipulation, or endless games. Instead, love becomes a sanctuary, a sacred space where both can rest, create, and thrive. Spiritual awakening prepares you for this by stripping away illusions of desperate attachment and showing you that authentic love exists where freedom and devotion walk hand in hand. In daily life, this reveals itself through respect for each other's individuality, the courage to grow side by side, and the ability to disagree without destruction. Psychological maturity lies at the heart of such a relationship. Jung's idea of individuation, the process of becoming whole within oneself, becomes the foundation of a bond that is neither dependent nor fragile. Two people who have faced their shadows and embraced their light no longer project unhealed wounds onto one another. Instead, they act as mirrors reflecting back strength, wisdom, and truth. Think of it like two instruments tuned in harmony, creating a melody that is powerful not because it is loud, but because it resonates with clarity. In modern terms, this looks like partners who support each other's dreams without envy, communicate openly without fear, and hold space for each other's transformation without judgment. True freedom in love is not the absence of commitment, but the presence of trust. It is knowing you do not need to hold tightly to prevent loss, because love rooted in authenticity cannot be stolen or diminished. Just as a bird sings most beautifully when free, love flourishes when both partners feel unchained and supported in their highest expression. This balance between closeness and individuality, presence and space, is what gives the relationship its strength and grace. And through this balance, both discover that love is not about filling emptiness, but about expanding abundance. The universe delivers this kind of connection only after it has refined a rare soul to embody truth, strength, and clarity. What emerges is not a fantasy, but a sacred partnership that uplifts, liberates, and transforms. It is expansion instead of limitation, truth instead of illusion, and wholeness instead of dependency. You are not meant to disappear into love, but to uncover deeper layers of yourself through it. The universe teaches you that peace is passion, freedom is devotion, and growth is the truest expression of love. This is the essence of a soul-level partnership, not a prize for waiting, but the natural result of becoming whole and awakened within yourself, so that when the right person arrives, you can meet them not as half, but as complete. And so, the universe's way of shaping rare souls is not punishment, it is preparation for a love that reflects the depth of who you truly are. If this message spoke to you, take a moment to reflect on your own journey and the wisdom it carries. Don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who may need these words, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. And be sure to turn on the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming videos filled with insight and guidance for your path.